Hello, today we're going to talk about outsourcing CPA services, how to outsource quality CPA services to help your business thrive. So what exactly are CPA services? Well, a certified public accountant is an essential part of your team. So in addition to handling your yearly taxes and business procedures, monthly or quarterly, they're going to reconcile your bank accounts, generate an income statement, a balance sheet. They're going to keep your general ledger pretty clean, keep track of your accounts receivables, and answer any questions that you have as it pertains to your business. So why outsource this? Well, outsourcing your CPA services are going to allow you to save overhead expenses such as health benefits, retirement benefits, any office space, electricity that you would use, technology fees, and many more items. So to see a comprehensive list of this, you can take a look at two other articles that I wrote, The Instant Outsourcing Becomes the Best Solution and Account Payables Outsourcing. Both of those are really good resources as far as the pros and cons and reasons to outsource it versus reasons not to. So there are three main ways that you can outsource. So you can hire a local firm, you can hire a CPA firm in another country, or you could hire a CPA as an employee in another country. And we'll go into each of these in a little bit more detail. So when to locally outsource. Please keep in mind I am not a CPA, nor am I a business or tax attorney. These are my personal opinions, and you should seek professional advice about all your accounting and tax concerns. However, in my business, this is when I would locally outsource. When I'm filing my taxes, not preparing the paperwork for my taxes, I'll go into that a little bit more depth in a little bit, but the actual filing of my taxes, I'm actually going to have somebody locally do that. Now, could somebody in another country do that? Absolutely. However, I just feel a lot more comfortable with somebody who knows my local taxes as far as the laws go. So, let's say, for example, you're in Austin, Texas. You're probably going to want a CPA that lives in Austin, Texas, who understands, not only the city, state, and national taxes that you have to go through. So for me personally, I just want somebody local for that. And also, all the examples that we're going through is for the United States. So this isn't to say that this doesn't work for somebody in the UK or Australia, for example. But the examples that I have in here are for the United States. So another reason I'm going to locally outsource is audits. Anytime I have the IRS involved, I'm going to get somebody local to help me out. So hopefully, if you've done a good job with your paperwork and your taxes, you're not going to get audited. But in the event that you do, I would personally get somebody local for that. Also, something that's incredibly niche specific. So for example, let's say you are a pharmaceutical company that creates penicillin and there is a tax break for you to move to Scranton, Pennsylvania and set up shop. That is incredibly niche specific. So anytime you have something that isn't just your run-of-the-mill normal general business practice, you're definitely going to want to locally outsource that. So when should you outsource to an offshore firm? Well, in my opinion, that's really only going to be two situations. First, I don't know enough about the topic to know if somebody's screwing it up, or I don't want to take the time to train somebody. So let's go into that in a little bit more detail. So as a business owner, you should have a pretty good idea of money coming in and money going out in your business. So you should be able to take a look at, your accounts payable and your general ledger and see if there's a glaring error. So in this particular case, I'm not sure it makes sense to use an offshore firm, because you're just going to end up spending extra money that you don't necessarily need to for something that you do know as a business owner. So you should be able to dig through it and see if there's an error. Now, an example of somebody who, maybe that I don't know about is, let's say I want an app created for a cell phone, and I don't know anything about coding, and I don't want to learn coding. In that specific instance, I'm going to hire a firm to do that. It's not something I want to learn. It's not something I'm ever going to learn, and I would have no idea, looking at all that code, if there's an error, because I don't know how to read it. So that would be a good example. Secondly, I don't want to take the time to train somebody. I'm going to argue that if you take the time to train them now, you're going to end up saving tons and tons of money in the long run, and it's actually worth it to break it down into steps and take the time to hire somebody and train them. But let's say, for example, you just can't for whatever reason. Don't hire a CPA in another country and expect them as an employee to just show up day one and know exactly what's going on. You're going to have to take some time to train them. If you don't want to do that, then offshore it to a firm and let them have the box of receipts and let them go through it. Those are basically the only two situations where I would use an offshore firm. When to outsource to an offshore employee. So instead of a firm, this is actually hiring a CPA and bringing them on your team as an employee. I would outsource all of the following tasks: bank reconciliation, accounts receivable, books keeping, income statements, general accounting, tax planning, now not tax filing, but any type of planning or preparation they can absolutely do. And again, that's debatable. I mean, you could probably have them file your taxes too, but me personally, I'm just not going to do that. Generation of balance sheets and financial statements, keeping your ledger clean, and preparing for a business evaluation. Now, for me personally, I am not going to have an offshore employee do a business evaluation for me. If it's something that I just want a general rule of thumb idea, I could have them do that for me. But if it's something, where I need it to go to a bank or something like that, I'm going to have somebody local do that, because they understand the area, the climate, and local comps that they can use against my business. So I would use local for an actual business evaluation. So you can easily and confidently outsource these items to someone in another country. I'm personally going to recommend the Philippines, and I have a whole nother article on my reasons for that, and you can find that at awesomeoutsourcing.com, accounts payable outsourcing. So 99% of the CPAs in the Philippines are very familiar with GAAP, and they know the national tax laws in the United States very well. And if you don't know, GAAP just stands for General Accepted Accounting Principles, which is what the United States uses. So what's the quality difference between somebody locally and somebody in the Philippines, for instance? Well, there is a bit of a difference, but it's probably not exactly what you're thinking. When dealing with somebody in the Philippines, you are going to notice a small accent when speaking to them on the phone. And the reason for this is their original language is Tagalog. However, they all know and understand and speak English very well. English is a major language there. It's taught in schools and it's spoken in courts of law. You will find everything is written in a court of law in English. So you shouldn't have any miscommunication problems that you might encounter. Let's say you use somebody in India, for instance. And this is the main reason that I recommend outsourcing to the Philippines versus, Brazil or India or another country where English is not well spoken. They just don't understand it, and you end up with a miscommunication. You told them one thing and they thought they understood what that meant in English, but really they didn't. You're not going to run into that in the Philippines, and so that's why I strongly recommend using the Philippines, just because they do understand English so well, and you don't have those language barriers that you might in another country. But again, if you take a look at those other two articles that I talked about earlier, it's going to go in depth very much into reasonings of the Philippines versus other countries. Second reason, your CPA may actually be more educated than you are. It takes 5 years of college just to complete their bachelor's, and they have to pass the Certified Public Accountant's Licensure exam. Now, to be able to sit for that, they need about 150 credit hours, and I believe 30 of that has to be in accounting classes, and 25 hours has to be in business classes. So it's only 120 hours for a bachelor's, so you'll find that the majority of them probably are going to have their master's either in accounting or business administration. So it's not unusual to find a CPA with their MBA as well. And again, to be able to sit for that task, to be able to sit for that test, they have to have a really good grasp of the English language. So as far as general business accounting practices, they are way more than qualified to be able to handle your QuickBooks and your general ledgers and things like that. So you will find there really is not that much of a quality difference unless you're talking about really specific niche things or local laws that they need to go and research. And even then, they can go and research them. They're just not going to know it, off the top of their head like somebody who lives in Austin, Texas, who understands the local laws in Austin, Texas well. So what's the cost difference? Here's the biggest reason for outsourcing to another country. In the United States, the average cost for accounting services, according to PayScale as of 2018, the average hourly rate for a CPA is about $30 an hour, and for bookkeeping or an auditing clerk, it's about $16 an hour. Now, if you look at this for the exact same CPA accreditation, for a CPA in the Philippines, it's going to cost you about $6 to $7 an hour. Now, you'll see some that are asking $4 an hour and some that are asking $10 or $12 an hour. I would stay away from the $4 an hour, and I would stay away from the $12 an hour. To get a really good quality CPA, you're looking at about $6 to $7 an hour. Anybody who has, who's asking 10 to 12 hours, they're probably incredibly niche in what they do, and chances are you need to go locally for that anyway. And as far as bookkeeping or auditing, that's going to run you about $2 to $3 an hour. Now, these are people who have taken accounting classes, but for whatever reason, they never finished the program. They never passed the CPA exam, so they may have their bachelor's in accounting but just never took the test, or they decided, hey, I have no desire to be a CPA, I just want to do QuickBooks, and they're very happy with the $2 to $3 an hour. Just don't expect to get a CPA that's going to do, bookkeeping for $3 an hour. If they're a CPA, regardless of what you have them do, they're going to want $6 to $7 an hour. They worked really hard for that accreditation. And so they're going to expect that. However, somebody who has maybe 5-6 years in bookkeeping, they don't have that accreditation, and they're very happy with $2 to $3 an hour. And just so you're aware, so you don't crucify me later, average minimum wage in the Philippines, in Manila, is about $2 an hour. So somebody who's making $3 an hour is actually getting paid above minimum wage, and they're not having to travel about an hour one way to their job and home. So for them to be able to stay at home and make $3 an hour, they are very, very happy with that. That translates into about $12 an hour in the United States. The cost of living is just much, much less. So don't think that you're paying them so little that they can't live. Now, let's be clear, $2 an hour is, minimum wage for them. So it is difficult for them on $2 an hour, but $3 an hour gives them quite a bit of breathing room and extra play money. So not unheard of for somebody to be happy with $3 an hour. Qualifications to look for. Obviously, if you're having them do all of your accounting work, you're going to want an accredited CPA. And at $6 to $7 an hour, it's just worth it. Unless you're just having bookkeeping done, and you don't want to pay the $6 an hour, and you only want to pay the $2 to $3 an hour, just don't expect them to be able to answer CPA type questions. Regardless of whether you hire a bookkeeper or a CPA, they should understand the general accounting principles and standards. So make sure you quiz them on that. You're going to want somebody who's a good culture fit for your organization. You want to be comfortable with their personality and confident in building a long-term relationship with them. Remember, you're allowing them into your bank accounts and QuickBooks and things like that. So, you're going to want to have somebody who's knowledgeable, knows exactly what they're doing, and is trustworthy. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to need, no training at all for your specific business. They will. They'll need to understand the way that you like to have things done, but you definitely want them to be knowledgeable and trustworthy. So, go ahead and quiz them on the national laws, and then make sure they understand, accounting principles, and see if they can figure out the local and state laws. Give them a couple of questions and have them go do their research, but do please make sure that you pay them for the 2 to 3 hours worth of research that you ask them to do. It's not nice when several people ask them time and again to do that and get some free work. So do make sure you pay them for that test. You're also going to want somebody who has at least 4 to 5 years experience. This is just me personally. I don't want somebody fresh out of college who has never worked and has no experience with accounting. For me to hand over my business stuff, I want somebody who knows what they're doing. So that's just a prerequisite for me. Someone who's used to working from home. In the Philippines, it's a little bit different, because it's loud a lot of times. So if they're used to being in an office environment and then all of a sudden they work from home and they're not able to, get through their list of tasks, for whatever reason, some people can't do that. Now, that is not the norm. I would say you may run into that 2% of the time. Most people are very easily able to work from home, but just make sure that they're a self-starter, and remember, there are checks and balances that you can put in place to make sure that they're working, but they're working from home, so they have no boss looking over their shoulder per se. You're also going to want somebody who has a high-speed internet connection, and this is for 2 reasons. During the rainy months, it's common for the power to go out, so you not only want them to have a high-speed internet connection, but you also want them to have a backup. So ask them, if the power goes out, how are you going to do your job? They have everything from dial-up to about 3 megabits per second is considered high speed for them. You can get up to 6, but they're honestly, for what they're doing, they're not going to need that. So they should have a 3 megabit per second internet connection to be able to do their job effectively. And also someone who does not have to take care of someone else while on the clock working for you. So this could be a child or an elderly parent. You'll just need to make it clear to them that if they do have somebody that they are responsible for taking care of, that they'll need to make other arrangements while they're working for you. If for whatever reason they're not willing to do this, this should be a red flag for you, and I would walk away. So couple of situations. Would I hire them local or hire them overseas? Well, for tax planning, I can do that overseas. Now, tax preparation, that's going to be local. I want somebody in my town. Tax problems, that's definitely going to be local. My preparation for an audit can be overseas, but if I need somebody representing me, if there's, I need IRS representation, that's definitely going to be local. Payroll processing, I can do that overseas. Bookkeeping, I can do overseas. Accounts payable is very easily done overseas. Any type of QuickBooks services, budgeting and financial projections can both be done overseas. Business loan assistance and business plan development can be done overseas. That's a lot of legwork that they're able to do for you. But any type of merger or acquisition, I'm definitely going to want that to be done locally. That's just my personal preference. I just want somebody who has a beat of my city and what's going on and what my business is worth. So I would definitely do that locally. Entity selection and business formation. You can make the case that you could do this overseas, but for me personally, again, I want somebody local who I can sit down with, explain my niche, and give me all my options, and be able to do that. You're pretty much only going to set that up once, so make sure you do it right. And financial statement preparation, obviously that's easily done overseas as well. So you can see outsourcing has, two different animals. It's, some things you definitely want to do local, but the majority of it you can do overseas without any dip in quality at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost you to hire somebody in the United States. So I hope this has helped you to be willing to do a little bit more education and take a look at possibly outsourcing some of your CPA services overseas here. As always, you can message me directly at Awesome Outsourcing on Facebook, and I would love to be in touch with you, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys, take care.